Kendall, can you hear us online? Can you hear us? Hello? Kendall, test, test.
Not yet. I can't hear.
Okay. Test, test. Can you hear us now? Test, test. Okay. Test, test, test. Normally we would reach out to AJ. Let me see if I have his extension. Test, test. I'm trying to log in from my phone too to see if I can hear. Is Greg here? Uh, ask him, see if he come check this out for us. Or fast. It should be working. I don't see any reason why it's not working. Yeah, it's just Kindle. If you can, please, I appreciate it. Test, test, test. I mean, I think it's coming. Test. Yeah, it's coming through.
It might be his.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. And yeah, check and see if you can hear us. Check your volume, check your settings because I mean it's coming through.
Testing, 1, 2. Testing, 1, 2. Everything on my side is working fine. Let me sign out and sign back in. Sometimes that works.
Test the microphone.
Test, test. Test, test. Test, test, test. It's working, ain't it? Maybe the problem is over there on their computer.
All right, let it know if you can hear us now, Kendall.
Yes, I can.
All right, spectacular. Thank you.
I'm so sorry for being late. And I might have to leave early. My allergies are killing me. But anyway, the meeting has been called to order. We'll start with roll call.
Marcus Nguyen, District 2.
Ross Stewart, Legal Department.
Reed Partridge, Auditor's Office.
Tonda Hill, DA's office.
Marcia Rock Guest.
William Barajas, retired PD.
Dwayne Beth, appointed by the sheriff.
Paul Soptic, member.
Sure.
Ladora Lattimore.
Nikki Richardson.
Cap Navarro Police Department.
Just bear with me.
And I do have a question if we have quorum. I'm not too familiar with how many people are board members on this advisory board, but we'd have to have 8 people who are board members to hold a meeting. And I don't know in doing that roll call who all announced.
Can board members raise your hand, please?
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we would need, yeah, who's on Zoom? That would be a good thing to have.
It's Kendall McReynolds. I'm a member.
That's 8, or actually, because if we have a chairperson, we've got 15 people and a chair. So there's 16 people that are voting members on this committee, or is it just 15?
It's 50. I don't think the sheriff, are you a voting?
I don't believe so.
Oh, it's 50.
Does the chair vote as well?
Yes.
Okay, so it'd be 16, so you'd have to have 9 people present, I believe. So who's available on Zoom?
Just Kendall.
Kendall McReynolds on Zoom.
All right, give me one moment to look at this code real quick and we can see if you guys have quorum.
Really thought 7 was the quorum.
You should be good with 8. So you can proceed, you got quorum.
So how many legal members do we have? 15 or?
You have 15 members are your legal amount because the chair is put into the role by the mayor. And there are 11 positions on the commission total, including the mayor, correct? And so because of that, that's 11 of them are nominated by the commission. You have 1 that's nominated by Human Relations and Disabilities, the chairman of that commission. And then you also have 3 from the sheriff's department.
Right,
So that should be 15. So you should be good to proceed. So you have 15, 8 is quorum.
right.
Committee.
Do we know how many board members we have that are actually active?
Well, we have, it really don't matter. We have 15 board members and
I know,
a quorum is whatever. We need to get our, the people that have resigned. We need to replace them, but that has nothing to do with the quorum. Mhm. Right, I know how that works. Kendall, will you please take the minutes? And I'm sorry, my printer went out and the kids weren't gonna let me come to this meeting. Thank you so much. Well, it's good to see everyone this evening. We met last month. We didn't have a quorum. We really could have talked about a legal quorum. We had 4 people present last time. Because I don't have an agenda to pass out to everyone, the agenda is, I'm doing the welcome now, reading of the minutes, listening sessions, next steps, report to the mayor, CEO, and commissioners, strategic planning, community engagement, long, short range goals, recap of DOJ's recommendations for LEAB board, and update on Nicole, Mr. Reed. These 2 items were suggested by Ms. Richardson, so you might want to talk a little bit about that. And then the December meeting, it was brought to my attention that this board usually don't meet in December, but then they started back meeting in December. So we need to act on that this evening. And and one of the ex officio members said that we need to either move our time or be accurate with our time. I think traditionally it's been 4 to 5. It seems like we have a lot of business, so I think 4 to 5:30, but you can think about it. But we need to act on it before we leave. And then meeting adjourned. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to place on the agenda? And Mr. Chief of Police and Mr. Sheriff, there is a place for you all to give some updates because a lot's been going in great. So Kendall, will you please read the minutes? I don't have enough to circulate.
I don't have them right at hand. I'd have to look them up.
Okay, that's all right. I have. Kendall sent them and I incorporated y'all's minutes. It's not a lie. Trust you.
Okay, members in attendance, Ladora Lattimore, Dwayne Beth, Paul Soptic, William Barajas, Kendall McReynolds, Lynn Melton, David Patton, Marcus Wynn, Nikki Richardson, and Reed Partridge. UG Commissioner Burrows also attended. Session called to order by Chairperson Lattimore. She explained the purpose and duty of the LEAB. Chairperson Lattimore opened the session to citizen comments. A citizen said his area of the city was underserved by police patrols and requested more patrolling because of shots fired incidents and trash dumping, specifically an area around the 2500 block of Cleveland and Rowland Streets. The problem of homeless individuals was raised, citing increased number of homeless needing shelter and services. Commissioner Burrows explained at length the difficulties of providing services due to the excessive number of homeless being forced into KCK Waco by surrounding municipalities. He detailed how the lack of funding, how there is little cohesion response to solutions, and why simply providing shelter and services will actually increase the problem. A new homeless camp around 50th and State was mentioned. The schedule of budget meetings for the UG was discussed. Paul Soptic moved to adjourn, David Patton second, and the vote was to adjourn.
Are there any questions? If none, is there a motion to accept the minutes as read? Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second that the minutes be accepted as read. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carry. We've had 4 listening sessions and they've all went well. Some had greater attendance than others. But we've talked about the sessions after every session. What we need to do now is to put it together in a form of a report and all the other activities that we've had in terms of a report and submit that to the mayor, CEO, and commissioners. I think at the next meeting, I will pull together and I will talk to you, Irene, to see what you have in terms of the listening sessions and bring all that together, and we'll get a committee. We can get a committee this evening to, you know, I'm a committee person, to talk about all the things that even happened prior to my coming, to be a part of that report that we submit to the commissioners. Any comments on that? We'll pause and hear from the chief of police and then the sheriff.
Well, just a few updates. Saturday, this past weekend, we participated with our Faith in Blue. Sheriff's Department also participated. It's a national initiative around the country where police and members of the faith-based community come together and pray for peace and do different activities. We had a prayer vigil at Emerson Park on Friday night. And then Saturday in Rosedale Park, we had a big outing in the park where we had carnival games for all the kids. It was from 10 to 2. We had pretty good turnout. We had little games like darts, horseshoes, three-legged race, cupcake walk, all kind of things. So we had a good time. Fire department was out there, KU police, I believe, in District 500. So, and members from the neighborhood and community came out to support it. As far as crime, I'll tell you what we have here. We put a violent crime, a four objective violent crime reduction plan in place in January of 2022. And ever since we put the plan in, we've been seeing some dramatic results. So far, year to date, we're down 39% in homicides. And that's right now, year to date, we have 19 compared to 31 this time last year. Those 19 are on pace right now, a historical low in the history of KCK. Year to date, it is the lowest in about 14 years. The lowest amount of homicides ever recorded in KCK for a whole year was 22, and we're sitting at 19 right now. Rape, we're down 40%. Aggravated assault, down 47%. Shootings, that includes shootings into residents as well as cars, are down 15%. Our robberies are down 18%. And regarding fentanyl, we're continuing to aggressively go after our fentanyl dealers and suppliers. So far, since January, through search warrants, we've recovered about 260 illegal firearms from fentanyl-related search warrants. In addition to about 350,000 fentanyl pills and about 55 pounds of powder fentanyl. Those two together result into, and that's about 8 million lethal doses of fentanyl that we've taken off the streets since January. So, and our real-time crime center is up and running. If you go to our website, you'll see KCK Connect. And what that is a new initiative where members of the community can register their cameras, not that we'll not for us to have access to them, but just saying that, hey, I have cameras at this address, and if the police is investigating the crime, I'm available to share that footage with you. So I think the last time I checked, I think we had about 40 residents that had registered. We just rolled this out last week, as well as there's an opportunity for businesses to be part of our software, which is Fusus, and it tells the business how they can purchase a Fusus box and put their cameras where they're monitored by the police department. So as we get, right now, we're waiting on our digital wall, which will encompass the whole back wall of the real-time crime center. And once we get that installed, you can look at the map and see all the cameras and all the cool things that we can do. And then once we get that set up, we'll set up probably a tour for the advisory board. So that's coming in the future. As well as in the next month or so, we should be getting our funding to start implementing gunshot detection around the city. We will be using those areas based on data, what's the best place to put those. And one thing that we're doing different than some other places, we're going to attach a camera as well as a license plate reader to that gunshot detection. So when the gunshot goes off, we'll be able to go back 30 seconds to see what was captured on video that created the gunshot. So that's all coming here in the next couple months. That's all I have.
Chief, do you all track police shootings, and do you have a comparison for the last 3 years?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell that, or you don't have it down?
No, I wouldn't know that.
Right.
Well, all I can tell you is last year we had, last year we had 3. So far this year we have 2.
Okay. And do you have off the top of your head, I should have it off the top of mine, but we partner with the police department on a lethality program. And if the chief have those numbers, that's really important. So many of homicides are DV related. And October is National Domestic Violence Month. And we, like I said, partner with, and we'll have a big culmination program on the 27th of October. Everyone is invited, but I think we like to boast that lethality program. And while you're.
Yeah, so we put that in place in January. Those are familiar with what that is. Which was surprising to me is that a city like Kansas City, Kansas, what was surprising to me is a city the size of Kansas City, Kansas never had a lethality assessment. And basically what that is that there's a checklist where when officers respond on a domestic violence incident, there's a checklist, things such as, you know, have the person been assaulted in the past, is there a weapon in the home, is alcohol involved, drugs involved, kids present, you know, was the individual strangled or choked, extent of injuries. All of these things create a score. So if it rises to a certain level, the officer is required to intervene right then and there instead of, you know, following up at a later date. And that intervention could include taking them to a relative's house or taking them to the Friends of Yates DV shelter, getting them groceries, getting them a babysitter. It could be anything, but we intervene immediately if they meet a certain score to reduce the chances of the individuals being seriously injured or killed. I can tell you we've seen a big difference. Last year, we had 14 domestic violence related homicides. So far in 2023, we have 3. So you could see it's kind of making a difference, as well as our DV assaults are down 10% year to date.
Mr. Chair.
All righty. Like the chief said, we had our event this weekend and it was a great turnout. Tomorrow night, we have 5 recruits graduating in this building down in the commission center or commission chambers at 5 o'clock. So if anybody's available for that. I don't know if I mentioned to this group or not, we secured some congressional funding through Senator Moran for a training simulator, and it's on its way, state of the art for us and for the area. And so hopefully once that thing is up and running, that's also another tour, if you will, that this group could take part in. And then I'll be shorter than the chief. The last thing I'll leave you with is we have 3 meet and greet coffee events that are going to come up, and I'll get that out to the group. We're doing 3 coffee shops in the county, one downtown, one in the south end, and one in Bonner. We're going to have somebody from each division, a commander from each division there. And so we would encourage the public to come out. We're doing a couple of them pretty early in the morning for those folks that need to get to work. So we're trying to be available and open to the entire community. So if you have somebody that has a question, concern, problem, something they just want to talk about, and maybe they don't always have access to some of our other commanders from other areas of the agency, they will all be there. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll get that out to you. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Richardson, would you like to talk about, recap the DOJ's recommendations and update of the Nicole?
Yeah, I believe that I was checking to see if we had made any progress on the DOJ's recommendation. He recommended that the Law Enforcement Advisory Board look into some resources provided by the government through NACOL. And I don't know exactly where we left with that. So I was just checking, and that might be a better question directed towards Reed. Sorry to bother you. But, but I just wanted to know if we had made any progress and where that's going to fit in our agenda, whether it's this year or next year.
As far as the NACOL, no, I forwarded that information on to, Ladora and whoever else, I don't remember, but I have not reached out to them at all. So if that's something.
I reached out to them several times. The person with Nicole for Kansas works at UMKC as a consultant with UMKC. We played telephone tag for about 5 times, and after that, she just haven't responded anymore. So I don't have anything to report on that. And we've talked several times about the DOJ's recommendation after the retreat, and several times since then. So that's where we are with that. One of the things that we kind of talked about informally last time, there is a statute, there is a memorandum of understanding. It seems like the police and sheriff are keeping us apprised of what's going on. And those biases and the racial unrest, I don't think it's as bad as it was, because we had a very special police department and a whole lot of that happened on and on. But, and I've been involved, I'm 75 years old, I've been involved since I was 18. So I've seen the changes that have happened over the years, but it has been a major difference since you've been here, Chief, and I want to give you your kudos. And Sheriff, you just keeping right along on with some of the good, Don Ash and all of what they've done. I've been right there. I bring that up because we've had these 4 listening sessions, and all the listening sessions have centered around, that I've attended. I missed the first one, was dogs, firing firearms and trash or animals as a nuisance is basically what has come out of these listening sessions. So are we to, but we'll talk about that as we pull this report together. And then we'll need to continue to come up with ways to engage the community to see if we're hearing everything. And it's gotta be a better way to communicate to the community, maybe not always in person, but what we put on our website, we need to establish a website, we need to talk to them about what we're doing, just ways to communicate back and forth. And that will take some planning and coordination. One of the other things that Paul talked about is a project, a short term, am I saying that right? Okay, talk about what you think we need to do.
Well, as a board, I think we need to focus on whatever's brought up in front of the committee. Instead of using a shotgun approach, we use a rifle approach. So if there's a problem with whatever, use of force, pursuit or whatever, I think we need to hone in on that and actually bring that to fruition. If there's a change we need, we can recommend it. If there's no changes, using the best practices of both agencies, then, you know, we bless it off and go to the next project. But I believe a targeted approach to a problem rather than say, we need changes. You know, let's see what changes we really do need and then focus on that.
Chief and Sheriff, how do you all think the best way to engage this board in terms of the positive and the negative with the police department? Because no matter how great we do, we can do better. And no matter how poor it is, it's not that bad. So how do we engage?
Well, I think the first thing, and we've been doing this at the police department, is stop making our problems their problem. Let them tell us what their problem is.
Whose problem?
I'm just saying communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, police used to do that for years. This is your problem, but I think even as an advisory board, we can't make our problems be their problems. We have to listen to what they're saying because, you know, we focus on violent crime a lot, and it's a major problem. But when you talk to most people, it's speeding, graffiti, and dogs. That's their problem. So I think we got to really make sure. And then when they have those problems, the resources on this board can kind of help them address it. Because we're already looking at doing some things with the dog issue. So I just think that really listening to them and letting them tell us what their problem is instead of telling them what their problem is and then have them restate our problem back to us. That's what I think.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. And I think to Paul's point, you know, we pick specific issues as they come up and not just generalities. It's hard to address a general issue, but it's easier to drill down on specific things. So. I think as far as the positive stuff, we keep doing what we're doing. We keep engaging you guys in our events and the things we're doing and the positive feedback we get. And hopefully that's a two-way street and it's headed back out through the board to the community.
One of the things I guess that I continue to get stuck on, it was a memorandum of understanding, and then there is a statute, ordinance. How do we marry that? And for the sake of this board and the community, did we move past that? And if we did, how? It's got to be something to accommodate the prerequisite of why we're here. So,
Yeah, I think that with those two, I think people get confused.
okay.
Operational wise, they have nothing to do with each other. So the state statute sets up the statute to where any municipality can set up an advisory board to deal with any of those issues identified in the statute. That was in place before that, what happened. So once the happened, the DOJ came, there was a memorandum of understanding. So the unified government created an ordinance. So you should really operate off of what the ordinance says, if that makes sense. The state statute is really not telling you, it's just giving you the authority to set up an advisory board based on all these criteria. The ordinance is how the action, how you run your board is in the ordinance is what you do. That was specifically done for the unified government.
So is the state statute, the statute for the state of Kansas, and set the parameters for anybody in the state of Kansas that have been riddled with these things that they list out in there. They talk about biases, they talk about racial, all of that is in that statute. And so an ordinance was derived from that, and a memorandum of understanding was derived from that and the statute. So that, and so I'm real clear on that. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you marry that? How do we address that? See, my thing is, there's a statute, there's an ordinance, and there's a memorandum of understanding. The statute is for the state of Kansas and don't necessarily mean us unless we have a reason to pull that statute out to create an ordinance or a memorandum of understanding. I understand that. And we did, based on that situation many years ago. But we tabled it. Nothing's ever been derived from that. And so how do we go back and not going back, whooping up old stuff, but have we addressed that? Has the police and the community gotten a better relationship? I know they have a better relationship, but it wasn't based on that situation. That situation hadn't even been dealt, you know, and I guess the reason I keep saying this is, how do we make sure we don't repeat something like that? If we don't address it and have some parameters to speak to that. So if it happens again, this is how we address that. Am I making sense? Do it make sense? Do you hear me? Do anybody hear me? Do you?
Yeah, so I always just put it in this time.
Okay, help me.
I think we need to really focus more about the ordinance, because that's what's
Okay.
actually, the memorandum of understanding has already fulfilled its purpose, and that was to set up the advisory board.
Okay.
Now, you couldn't set up the advisory board if there wasn't a state statute. So
Right.
the state statute allowed them to set up the advisory board. Then you couldn't set up one without an ordinance saying how the advisory board will operate. So the ordinance is kind of how the advisory board should operate based on the state statute.
And this is just for thought. I don't expect us to be able to answer this question. But I think what you're trying to maybe maybe ask is if the ordinance that was created creates a pathway for a solution for the issue that caused it to be created. When you read the ordinance, it basically is like we are a board that's supposed to communicate on behalf of the police department, information to the community, and help build a relationship. I don't know if it is specific enough or was designed in a way to actually address the racial bias issue, because that was the event that happened. I think that was what the community was saying, that there was some sort of racial bias, which is covered in the statute. The statute talks about racial bias, and that's why you can have an advisory board.
Ordinance does too. The ordinance reflects several of those things that's.
About racial bias in the ordinance. Can you,
I don't know.
because I know it's in the statute, but I know in the ordinance that it's to racial bias policing
I can't remember, but the first one.
in building the relationship.
Right.
Talked a little more about some of the stuff in the statute.
Yes, yes.
Is that a copy of the ordinance?
But, so I just want us to, some food for thought to think about that. Because we don't want to create anything and make a problem be a problem if it's not a problem. And so, but the thing of it is, are we doing due diligence in terms of what the ordinance and the memorandum of understanding and the statute? And the statute is a standalone that you don't never have to use if you don't have to use it. I understand that. But because of this situation, it created that, and that might be fulfilled. See, it might be fulfilled. I'm just not getting on the board.
Madam Chairperson.
Uh-huh.
So I'm looking at the duties on the ordinance, and it doesn't seem to state anything specifically about racial bias or any form of like bias policing. I think that
It's many pages to that.
that comes from the statute, which is a lot larger. Our ordinance is very small. It really is just a page. And that's why I'm saying I don't think the ordinance was created with enough depth to really address. I'll let you have that. To address it. So that might be something for the board to discuss. If there's questions as to, do we go with the statute or the ordinance? I agree with Chief Oakman. The memorandum of understanding was satisfied when the board was created. The statute that allowed that power was under the Kansas statute, but the ordinance is what we operate on. And the ordinance isn't built for us to actually tackle any form of bias policing or racial bias policing, or give us any form of instructions on exactly how we go about that and whose duties, that all involves. So it could be that a recommendation is made that a ordinance is drafted that better fits what it was intended to tackle. And that could be very well why there hasn't been anything that addressed that particular event over the last 16 years, because they're operating off of an ordinance that doesn't really address it.
And the vagueness of it might have been for that purpose, that I just need to get it because it definitely speaks to that. But if the ordinance was that vague and it was a lot of people involved in the development of that, then maybe we've done what we needed to do or doing what we need to do. And then it bears what Paul said, if issues come up, we address them as they come up and don't let stuff linger and be a big community mess. If we have these, relationships, I'm gonna just say the George Floyd situation, that didn't happen in Kansas City, Kansas, but it affected the country and the world. And so if there are good community police relations, we can get on top of that and it not impact our community like it did other communities, because we have a working, caring relationship. So that's that attacking things when it happens versus letting it brew and be something like unrest that you can't put a lid on once the popcorn get all out. Oh, where you see him at? Oh, hi, Kendall. Kendall,
I'd like to say something here.
okay.
Going along with what Paul said and including what Nikki has said, the memorandum of understanding and the ordinance were created because there was a huge problem with racial bias in society, to include police department, LEOs, whatever. It also included neighbors, businesses. So that MOA and all that happened 15 years ago, and I think there's been some improvement. The problem that I see is that we have created a change in our police department and the way they train, and they now train with that in mind, and as well as several other issues. So the community has done what they can do so far to combat racial bias. Now it's going to take time, unfortunately, because some people won't believe that's happening. And it just takes time for them to realize that there is a change and there is improvements being made. And when we had those listening sessions, problems were very neighborhood specific. We can't say there's a huge problem with policing out in the West, the same problem as there was in the Northeast area of Kansas City, Kansas. And I would also like to say that with all the things that have happened in the last 10 years, most of that did not affect Kansas City, Kansas, because the police department, the sheriff's department, the faith-based organizations have all gotten together, and the citizens have all gotten together, and they talk about things before it gets too intense. So I get upset when people say, well, look what's happening in Baltimore, or look what's happening in San Francisco. Okay, fine, that's Baltimore and San Francisco. That's not the city in which I live. It doesn't happen like that here.
And that's an ambivalent statement, because what happens in Baltimore and New York, depending on what it is, it can impact the whole country, like the George Floyd situation. There have been several situations that it caused an outburst all over the country. The thing is, we don't want to even take it there. The fact of the matter is, we had 4 listening sessions, and people talked about what was important to their community. It was loud noise, dogs, animals, other animals, and trash dumping and stuff. That's Marcus.
I don't disagree with anything anyone has said so far. I do want to point out, I think it's important to note, there were multiple comments in the first 2 listening sessions that dealt with concerns about bias. And I think they were not the vast majority of the comments, but I think it's important to note that they were still present in both the first 2. I also really agree, Paul, with your comments of we have to take this and get specific. If we can't get specific, then we're just talking in circles. I'm not really sure. I don't disagree with anything that's been said about the statute, ordinance, MOU conversation. I'm not sure what the practical significance is, how it changes how we operate. I'm hearing a little bit of maybe this has run its course and is no longer necessary. And that might be the case. I think lawyers would have to look at this to, to decide what the right way forward is. My reading is if we wanted to make that recommendation, that would require a renegotiation with the DOJ, because that is an ongoing memorandum of understanding. And so in order to complete it, they would have to be part of that process. So maybe we should explore that, but I think, we can't, I don't believe that we have the authority to just say, oh, we've done it, we don't need to do it anymore on our own. I think we could invite that conversation if we feel like it is needed.
And I think that based on my understanding, that was a negotiation. That wasn't, this is what you got to do. That was a negotiation. And if this community, by way of the commissioners, chose that that's not where they are now, that can't go away. One of the things, the thing is with that and with what's happening in the community and with the police department and the sheriff's department, we want to be so careful because biases are going to be till we die. The thing is, how do we approach it in a way that we can say we have a healing, not healed, healing community coupled with all the other positive things they do? Because I've watched that sometimes we jump on the police department and all of that when anything goes wrong, but we don't talk about praising them for the good things. And so we have to be real clear what our agenda is. And then our agenda needs to be perpetuated by where we want to go with the listening sessions. I think we need to chronicle them and what came out of those sessions. And I wasn't at the first listening session, and whatever came out of that, that's important to be a part of that report we give. Nothing needs to be taken away. It's how you approach the situation and how do we approach the big picture. I'm looking at this clock, Mr. Sheriff, he got us real straight last week. So let me just stop for a moment. Do we want to leave at 5 o'clock every meeting, or do we want it to be 5:30? Let's vote. All in favor of 5 o'clock, raise your hand. All in favor of 5:30, raise your hand. Okay, we'll keep it at 5. So, okay.
Real quick. So as much as I wanted to, because I can do other things Wednesday at 4, but I don't think the group needs to go away. And I'll tell you why. And I don't think there was, I don't know, there might've been someone in here, maybe Paul, I don't know. But we keep talking about the George Floyd thing didn't happen in KCK. And do you know why? Because this board at that time was instrumental in making sure that didn't happen. That was the purpose of that board. And I don't know, I think somewhere along the way, we lost our direction
And I wasn't on the board.
and
The
focus.
chief came to me
Yeah,
and said, Ladora, what can we do to prevent this? I called a group of people together.
Yeah.
The mayor was a part of that. I mean, he wasn't the mayor then, but all of these things, and it was a cross sector of community.
right. And that discussion started right here in that law enforcement board, because the mayor was here, several pastors was here. That's where that started. And then it started reaching out because each person went out to their community and reached out. And then the community got the stuff going and so on. So I don't think the board needs to go
Let me
away because
clear up
that
one
needs to
thing.
be available.
I don't think this board ever needs to go away. It could refocus its purpose, but I think this is a representative body of the 11 elected officials to speak to the issues of the community. So that's, I wasn't meaning that. I was just saying what the specific purpose was of that memorandum of understanding. That could go away. It don't mean the board has to go away.
Yeah, I
And
was
that
just
don't-
saying because there was, that the board's never done anything, and that's not true. That it was instrumental in.
And I would hope that those from the board that are appointed by commissioners are going back to their commissioner. And it's a two-way communication street, if you will, just like the ones that I appoint. I would sure hope that if, you know, Dwayne or somebody hears something or knows of a problem, that he's bringing it to me. And then it can be brought to the board. So I agree 100%.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, it's 5 o'clock and we voted that we're gonna stop at 5, so I don't care what we're talking about. We move for adjournment. But I want to say one thing before we adjourn. The next meeting, is it anybody that want to participate on developing the report for the commissioners? Want to volunteer? Okay, I'll start appointing. You all down here, you over there, and me and you. Since nobody volunteered.
Can I,
Hey.
Lazora, can I please ask a question? I wanted to wait till the end of the meeting. I want to know from the chief, what number we're still short on police. $45 short. Okay, sheriff? 36, okay. And 45. Also too, did they ever put the all-terrain vehicles, and did that ever become an ordinance?
Because we did another, but we did get 5 ATVs.
Okay, but this is an ordinance, that they can't have dirt bikes or all-terrain vehicles on the street.
Yes, when we did the ordinance.
Yeah, and there was another statement that I did want to make.
Pardon me 1 second. Are we gonna meet in December?
If you have it, I will come. If you have it, I will come.
Okay, so we'll just have it in December, like. Okay, go ahead, Marcia.
Well, I didn't get to go to a lot of the listening tours. I did go to one of them. I wished I could have gone to more, but I did check with Lador, to tell me how they went. And she did tell me about the barking dogs and the noise and all this and that. And I know for a fact that that's true, because there is no one that is working at that time, not community police, not animal control. The only ones that are working are the division police. And that's why these people know this, and they let their dogs out, and they have loud noise, and they do whatever they want to do because they know they're closed. And this is probably going to be a problem for some time. That's all I wanted to say.
Do we need a move to adjourn? So moved.
So moved.